chair. I will sit back on the side. So with that, I'd like to introduce, do we have anybody nominations for the position of chair of the Advisory Planning Commission?
Can we have the names again? Because I've forgotten who it is.
Care to introduce yourselves? This is Robert.
And Andy? What was that?
Robert, Ken, Andy?
Who was been nominated?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Just saying our names. You.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry. This is too echoey. I can't work it. Yeah, Alan Garno.
Alan? My name is Judy. Thank you.
Already, again, any nominations for the position of chair of the Advisory Planning Commission?
I will nominate Ken. You've been on this before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been here for a few years, yes.
Yeah.
Do you accept, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. Second call for nominations of the position of chair of the Advisory Planning Commission. Third and final call for chair for the position of chair for the Advisory Planning Commission. Hearing none, I declare Ken as our new chair. Congratulations. Well done.
Well done, Ken.
We don't have to worry about 5A on your agenda. You don't have to worry about 5A on your agenda.
Okay.
Possible.
Okay, I'll just do that. You'll have to bear with me. So I think if we go back to, first of all, we've got the call to order. Any late items that need to be introduced?
That's usually position for yourself, Mr. Chair, to bring something up at the last minute as you see fit.
Well, in my vast knowledge in this position, I don't have anything.
Okay. So then, point 3, approval of the agenda.
You have the agenda in front of you. Do you have the approval of the agenda? Can I have, okay,
Second.
and seconded?
Point number 4, Mr. Chair, adoption of the minutes.
Has everyone had a chance to read through the minutes?
Is this the minutes of August 30th, 2022?
That's That's correct. It was a year and a bit ago, the last time that we met on these items. Yes, that's correct.
Not having been there, of course, and that fits most of us. I couldn't testify as to errors or omissions or anything else.
Just you and me. So I'm fine. And I'll second.
Yeah.
So 5A's been looked after. And so we move on to item 5B, the report from the planning consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue is an amendment bylaw proposes to change the current floor area ratio from 1.5 to 1.78, change the lot coverage from 75% to 76.9%, and change the building height from 15 meters to 22.8 meters. Upon review of the village's official community plan, the site is within the Lakeshore Beach area designation, the waterfront commercial area, and within the Lakeshore special planning area. As per the village's zoning bylaw, the site is zoned as, Village Commercial 1 and is bounded by Littlewood Avenue to the south, Spruce Street to the west, and Rendell Park to the north. The original application was received in 2021. The amendment bylaw received first and second reading at the July 27, 2021 regular council meeting. Public and external agency input and comments for this project was concluded as follows: that the developer host an open house in August 2021. Referred the proposed bylaw to the APC, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, the village's fire department, and the Fraser Valley Regional District, and the setting up of a public hearing in October 2021. Based upon the report dated February 16th, 2022, council passed the following motion that the zoning bylaw not be given any further readings until the following has been provided and accepted by council: a view impact study, a sunshade review, a tree survey, including on-site trees and those which border the site on public property, a parking plan, including any potential impact on the boat launch parking area, a local traffic impact review, a crime prevention through environmental design review, and completed negotiations as per the community amenity contributions policy, information outlining how the application intends to address the reduction of their carbon footprint for this project. All the on-site parking requirements have been met or arrangements have been made to address the issue that are satisfactory to council. In June 8th, 2022, the village received the additional information. During the council meeting of August 8th, 2022, the amendment bylaw did not receive third reading. The developer's agent was advised of the refusal, and staff indicated that they had three options to follow as outlined below: wait a year and reapply with no changes to the application, substantially revise and resubmit, or follow the current zoning bylaw requirements. The developer opted to substantially revise and resubmit the application. And listed below is a chart on page 5 of your agenda package, showing you the issues under consideration with the past application, what changes needed to happen, and then the revised application and what needs to be changed with the current revised application. Some of the big things that should be noted is there's the floor area has been reduced from 2.31 down to 1.78 in the new package. The lot coverage has been reduced from 83.9% down to 76.9%. The building height is staying the same at 22.8. The number of stories is decreased by 1 from 6 to 5. The commercial space requirements have dropped from 587 square meters down to 522 square meters. The number of dwellings has been reduced from 108 down to 80. The bike stalls, the past application had 50, the current application has 26. Electric vehicle chargers, there was a proposal in the past application to have 126 chargers, and at this particular point in time, it's unknown with the revised application. The parking stall requirements, at that time, the past application required 169 parking stalls, and this time they're all 132, and all of them are all on site. There's 10 accessibility parking stalls, and that stays the same. The community amenity contributions at the past one was at 30,000. The current revised one's at 30,000. Off-site parking is not applicable with the revised one because, as I mentioned earlier, it will be all on site. The disability affordable housing offer at 10%, and again, it's a 10% offer. The trees retaining 6 out of 33 on the original application, and proposing now to retain 19 out of 33. They're looking at doing a view quarter to protect the views, and they're offsetting above the ground floor 4.3 meters from the first floor to the 5th floor, whereas before it was a staggered amount. Rooftop amenity area was going to be available to the users of the facility only. Now they're being proposed to be available to the residents and the users. Part of the package was the washroom upgrade in Randall Park. The past application had a 1-year warranty on their work. The revised application, they're talking about a 2-year warranty. The public plaza area, nothing under the old application, and under the new one is a 2-year warranty, locating it at the corner of Littlewood Avenue and Spruce Street. Now, I've just added in there what the purpose and the use of the floor area ratio is. It's just basically you can control the mass of the building, whether it goes across the entire thing, or if there's an environmental issue, it can go up. Purpose of the lot coverage, again, it's the same thing. It's to control the scale of the development on the lot. You can have 100% or you can have 50%. Depends on the whole purposes, and the purpose of the building height is just a tool that controls the overall height of the building or structure. Architectural elements that do not add to the floor area to the building or the structures such as parapet walls, chimneys, vents, and roof equipment are not considered part of the height of the building structure, as outlined with those bullets there. Public realms is offered by the developer. The current one is parking and streetscape improvements. As you can notice, there's the 5 issues identified on page 7. The dwelling units, disability or affordable, there'll be a minimum of 10% of the residential units will be adopted. And please note that that works out to be approximately 8 dwellings. Develop, and the additional amenities that are being offered include the 3 bullets there on page 8 of your agenda package. Is the development of a public plaza, the new landscape on 3 sides of the public washroom, the top floor amenity area will be open to both the public and the users of the building. And with respect to the accessibility impact, in terms of accessibility, the project must meet the BC Building Code requirements for universal accessibility as per the Building Access Handbook 2014. And the agency referrals, the council has authorized us to send this application to the Advisory Planning Commission, the Village's Fire Department, and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And as mentioned, all of the referral agency comments must be received by staff prior to any public hearing being held, as these comments must be shared with the public during the public hearing. The title of this site has been reviewed and there is no flood covenant registered on title. As outlined in the Village's Development Procedures Bylaw, specifically Section 11, council requested that the developer hold a public notification meeting, and this meeting was held on February 10th, 2023. All of the conditions that they were required, including sending in the minutes of the meeting, the pictures of the advertisements have been addressed, and we're just waiting to make a cohesive package once all of the referral comments have been received. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask for the blessing that we can turn this over to the developer's agent to guide us through a presentation. The PowerPoint that they're going through is attached to your package.
Just before that, if we could, comments and questions on what we presented up till now?
If you wish, or you can do it at the very end.
Let's do it now and just separate from the presentation.
Sure.
Any comments from the group on what's been presented thus far? Yeah, please.
I would like to know what adaptable, and as far as the revised application means.
I'm sorry?
What is the term? Disability affordable housing offer, adaptable, only 10%. What does that mean?
Oh, that means they'll have things in there so you can have like a safety bar in the washrooms, those sorts of things, lower counters.
Okay, and later on it talks about adaptable, and somewhere else I read it that no, never mind, leave it at. The other question I have is the rooftop amenity area. In there, you say it's available to residents and users. What does that mean?
That means the public?
How do the public get up there?
No, it's the residents of the building, so that.
Oh, it's my
Yeah.
apologies.
So it's not to the public. I mean, we looked at potential to do that, but there's liability issues and.
I was
you don't
gonna
want
say.
People coming into where you're living and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's not,
That's the public plaza would kind of be. the
Okay.
amenity for
so the rooftop amenity
Yeah.
area is just available to residents.
Residents
Yes.
of the building, yeah, so the way the wording was like, was a little bit confusing, I suppose.
Okay.
So,
I had a question mark there on the same thing.
And then the other thing I have is a question on the trees. Is this allowed? Can I question the tree?
Have we talked about that in this first portion?
Have we?
Yes.
If you want to.
Okay. Well, then my question on the trees is, I know that they have made a change in the trees on the border on the north side. They're keeping those, although I really can't believe they're going to live very long with a building like that. That's fine. It's the trees on spruce that I have a problem with. It appears to be on the township property. And I'm not sure why they have to come down, those trees on spruce, because they're quite attractive.
we had an arborist assess all the root zones of the trees. And so unfortunately, those ones wouldn't make it with the current proposal, but they did assess all the trees, so that's the ones along the Rendell Park are going to be all right, be able to be.
All right, they're right, but the ones on Spruce aren't.
But also there's the street improvements that are required with the new sidewalks and curbs, and that's another reason why the existing trees would be in the way of the new city sidewalk.
Yeah, no, and I looked at that, and some of them are on the west side of the sidewalk, so I couldn't see why they couldn't stay.
It probably has to do with the root zones and where they would be underneath, where like the trunk would be. I mean, we rely on the arborist to provide that information, and so, I mean, if they could be saved, that'd be fantastic. Obviously, we want to retain as much as we
Yeah,
can,
because that's
but
a
that's what the report says.
So in question to that, is the arborist report part of the submission that we'll be able to review?
So it was
See why not.
submitted as part of our application.
Yeah, it's not in the agenda package this evening. If, however, you can make that a condition that we go back and review it again, and
We would be very comfortable sharing that report.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate, because there's questions here is related to the trees, and that satisfies
that's
that.
the issue.
Yeah, thank you.
Am I allowed to add something to that, sir? We talk about it a little bit later, but there's a portion of negotiating with staff for replacement trees as well. So that's yet to be determined, but the trees won't just be removed, there'll be replacement after.
And what type of trees are we talking about for replacement? Small trees, big trees, what type?
That would be negotiated with staff, but if this committee wanted to make recommendations about that, then it could do so.
Okay.
I know replacing trees is wonderful, but these trees are hundreds of years old and they can't be replaced. So, but I understand, I see both sides, so, yeah.
I think if we ask for the arborist report, and then we're able to come back after that and then put comment on that, does that satisfy? Okay. Any other?
Yeah, question here, the revised application, the FAR, 1.78, does that include the rooftop patio? As in the open space rooftop patio, or?
It's an indoor space.
Yeah, the floor area just the floor ratio only looks at the habitable areas, doesn't take into account always, things like that.
Or patios? Patios on?
No,
so
not normally.
doesn't include those? Okay. Okay, and yeah, the question about the rooftop amenity area I had as well. A question about the storm drain, but we'll leave that one for after your presentation. Probably can cover that.
Any questions?
I think I'll have most of my comments after I've had the presentation again. I did happen to be at all of the council meetings where previous versions have come forward, and people, and I recall very distinctly my reaction at the time of the original application and then your ideas for possibilities. So I feel like I already had a good idea what was up here. I think I have just one technical question. There's no mention, it says unknown, about the vehicle chargers, the EV chargers.
I think it was open to discussion with staff. I think the owner is willing to put in as many charging stations or rough-in for electric charging station as would be deemed appropriate. But that was open to negotiations.
Having been involved in these discussions, sorry.
No,
Having been involved in these discussions in other buildings, other jurisdictions, I think roughing in for every parking spot would be a really good idea because it's really cheap to do at this stage.
Yeah.
Doing it afterwards is,
Yeah.
a lot more difficult. Even if you don't actually put the charges in, just rough it in so the buyers can play.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yes.
yes, Mr. Chair, the last time we did that, that was the same way we did it, is it came in as unknown, and as we went through the process, the figure of 126 came to light. And so we're assuming this is gonna be the same thing. It starts off at unknown, and then we go through the negotiation process.
As we're acting as advisors to mayor and council, then the questions that we bring up for them to consider just highlights the things that we feel that they should have a greater look at.
Yes.
So that's would be the purpose of what we're bringing up today, so they can do that. Any other
Just one,
points? Yes?
one point of clarification for my own benefit. The view corridor, could you define that for me, please? What does that mean?
Basically, the city bylaws require that the buildings not entirely block views to the lake from the street.
Yeah.
So they may maintain a certain minimum view corridor at certain intervals. You can't have a extremely long building without any breaks that you can view through. So the view corridor that this latest proposal is showing is that view corridor is way larger than the minimum required to enhance it in a bigger view corridor on the east side of the property.
Okay. So it meets the requirement, our requirement.
And I just have a couple, if I can confirm, then adaptable means accessible in terms of the report.
Yes.
I should clarify that as well. Like accessible and adaptable are slightly different. Accessible is fully wheelchair accessible. Adaptable means more mobility use. It's not meant for wheelchairs. Adaptable means if you have some mobility issues, such as using a cane or a walker, there's extra clearances like Ken mentioned in terms of around doors and bathrooms and kitchens, but it's not a fully wheelchair accessible unit.
Are any plan for full accessibility?
At this time, no.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 10% to the adaptable or no accessible.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 8 at the very top, we have some for commercial use for short-term rentals and some for residential use. I primarily have a concern of mixing short-term rentals with long-term rentals and purchased for market condominiums. And I'd like to ensure that that is tabled as a concern. And if I could, I'd like to submit some research papers for to be provided to mayor and council when this goes to them, if I could. Thank you. The concern primarily is around the problem with short-term rental patrons have no investment in the community and don't lend themselves and add to the sense of community and the sense of ownership and buy-in. Typically, the short-term rentals also have people who tend to come there for holidays and more party type activities and become a conflict with the residents and long-term. And there's a number of research papers that support that position. That also makes long-term rentals less affordable by taking rental units and converting them for short-term rental use. So we can't solve that problem, but I did want to table out and have the research papers submitted for mayor and council to consider.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
I think our what we have to look at as a committee is the systematic and orderly growth of the village for the ultimate benefit of the community. And I am not convinced that short-term rentals benefit the community. If you want short-term rental, then you use the hotel or the hotels or motels, and that benefits the society because that's bringing some money in to the community and they do something. But this short-term rental does nothing. I mean, if we're going to have short-term rental, then it should be limited to a minimum of a month or something like that.
Well, short-term rental is typically classified as 1 month or less is
Or less.
the term. And so those, we can't make any decisions. All we can do is table our concerns for mayor and council to consider. And so that's on the minutes. So we've got that, that going forward. The one other point on page 8, just confirming this, Ken, if I could, item 3 at the top, the top floor amenity areas will be open to both the public and users of the building. You're striking this and saying will be open to users of the building?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I had no further comments on that section. We can move on to the presentation.
Sorry, we were just having a brief discussion about, we'll bring that concern, in particular about short-term rentals, back to the owner developer. I can't speak to it right now because the owner developer isn't here, just the representatives of that individual is, but very likely will just be complicit as far as that request is concerned. Okay. Oh, there I
There we
am. There. And these are office glasses, so, oh, that's gonna help me now. Oh, that's what I'm wondering. Okay, so first and foremost, my name is Ryan Anderson. I own a company called OTG Developments. We're the applicants and representative of the developers. But I did want to also say that Jen is here from my staff. She's been doing most of the heavy lifting with this project, so she'll be able to answer most of the minutia questions and technical questions. Then we also have Beyond and Leslie, they're direct representatives of the ownership group. And Leon and Jordan, thank you, sorry. And Jordan here from Station One Architects to also answer any questions at the end. Okay,
Thank you.
oh, and I think for the record, our office is at Unit 201-45269 Keith Wilson Road in Chilliwack.
Can we ask questions as you go through the presentation?
Sure, I may not answer them directly, but we've got people that might be more suitable for some questions, but I'll do my best. And if that's how the committee would like to proceed, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you. Okay, so 511 Lillooet Avenue zoning amendment. Okay. Not sure what my trigger thing is. So Ken has done a wonderful job of explaining the development, but the proposal again is to amend the text of the Harrison Hot Springs zoning bylaw to permit the following on-site specific basis: an increase in permitted FAR from 1.75 to 1.78. I would like to point out that we're just a hair over at this point after the reduction from the original proposal. An increase to the maximum allowed building height from 15 meters to 22.8, same height as was noted earlier. It was originally proposed, and an increase in the permitted lot coverage from 75 to 76.9. So again, minor variance. Yes, sir.
Okay, relative to those 3 points, could we have an explanation as to why you're going above what is currently the bylaws of the village?
It's basically to make the project financially viable. And like was noted, we're just slightly over specifically the FAR requirement and lot coverage height. We were extremely close to meeting the bylaw without any variances. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite squeeze it down to make it, so that's why those are officially variances. One other note in terms of the building height, it was noted that the height the actual number hasn't changed from the previous application, even though it was 1 story less. And the reason for that, I think, requires an explanation. The building height is measured to the highest point of the proposed building, not an average, it's the peak. And when we removed 1 story from the previous application, we kept a few key architectural highlight features of kind of raised roof areas. And that's where the building height is technically measured to that point. So the vast majority of the roof is about 5 meters lower than that 22.8. It's 17.95 meters, I believe, which is still a variance, but much less than the official one, which is 22.8, because it's measured to those pop-up roofs, basically. But to answer your question about the increase or the request is to make with the elimination of the 1 story. That also took out a lot of units as well. And just to make the project viable, that's why these variances are still being proposed.
So if I may, just back to the building height, you took a story out. So the architectural features are still the same height. Does that mean that previously what was behind was just up higher, closer to that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I carry on? Yeah. Summary provision. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so again, Ken did a really nice job of going through the revisions that were made, but just to sort of reiterate that, the FAR has gone from 2.31 to the 1.78, the lot coverage from 83.8 to 76.9, the tree retention from 6 of the 33 to 19 of 33, The parking has gone from a major variance required to compliant with the bylaw. Dwelling units, this was what Leon was just referring to, is dropped from 108 to 80, so a drop of 28 units. Again, as Leon was talking about, 6 stories to 5 stories in height. And the public plaza amenity, originally there wasn't one, and now there is one. And this was our best reaction to what we thought the previous council and APC were looking for when the project didn't make it through 3rd reading. We weren't part of that original application. We were hired to try and get it over the finish line. So, but it's what we felt when we reviewed what was presented, what could be tweaked to make a more palatable proposal. Proposed development breakdown. So 84,180 square feet of residential space over those 80 units, for 4,061 square feet of indoor amenity space, 13,952 square feet outdoor amenity space, inclusive of the rooftop lounge, public plaza, and the outdoor courtyard, and 5,620 square feet of commercial space comprised of a 60-seat, 2,290 square foot restaurant, and 3,330 square foot personal service space. And I just want to point out, if I may, that this is what Leon was specifically referring to, where what's the fancy term used?
Localized projections.
Those localized projections. So you can see these slightly higher localized projections with the upper floor being slightly lower than those localized projections.
So without those add-ons on the roof, how much or how high is the building in itself?
The main roof height is, instead of 22.8, it's 17.95 meters.
And the personal service space, could you please give a definition of that?
It's like, it's open for who wants to come, but that would be like a hair salon or, you know, that kind of thing. Like a gym or, it's sort of open for what they want to have there, but
But personal service space is localized businesses?
yes, part of the commercial space.
And the restaurant, that has to be a restaurant, or can that be something else too? Somebody else wants to rent it and
I mean, under the zone, I suppose it could, but I believe it's been designed for,
to be a restaurant.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It could be any commercial, but the intent was with the views towards the park and the lake, that would be a perfect spot for a
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
But it could be other commercials.
Okay, thank you.
Tree retention, we spoke about this a little bit before. Trees located adjacent to Rendell Park have been retained. That one in particular, we thought was a bit of a touch point on the last go around, so we're happy to have come back around on that one. And then again, a fairly significant increase of the total of 19 of the 33 identified trees being retained. And as I mentioned earlier, to offset the loss of vegetation, the developer will work with the village staff and plant additional trees within the village, understanding that it's not possible to plant 100-year-old trees in replacement, but perhaps maybe some quantity might make up for some quality.
Now, those village planted trees, is that part of your $30,000 allotment, or is that in addition to it?
Unless I'm mistaken, I believe those are 2 separate items. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, because I can't read the fine print, the red circles are the trees being removed.
Yes.
And once construction is complete, would the land be feasible to put some replacement trees along the sidewalks that will be in play or not?
Have to maybe talk about.
Yeah,
It would be.
Yeah, that'd be definitely one of it. Some of the streetscapes, some of, in terms of the public sidewalk areas.
Yes.
That would definitely be areas we would propose, or, of course, coordination with city staff, but that would
Yeah,
be.
because it shows in your rendering there is, could be trees there.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Traffic, this was another bit of a touch point that we felt. So the traffic and parking study, which stated July 27th, 2022, was completed by CTS Traffic Engineering Specialists. The study was based on a higher density of the same use, and thus findings will still apply to the development. The report estimated that the site would generate approximately 48 peak hour trips. The intersection capacities were analyzed. It was determined that the added traffic from the proposed development would be negligible as performance and levels of service were maintained. So, is there any questions specifically about that?
Does that take into account boats coming out of the boat launch ramp on a busy day?
Yeah, they did definitely look into the boat launch. That was a significant
Yeah,
part of
sorry.
their scope of work, was to take that account, that boat launch and the public parking area.
Okay.
Yeah.
The entrance to the underground parkade, that's on the east end of the development, is it?
Correct. Yeah.
And there,
On the next slide, if you show where it is.
Okay, thank you.
The parking that's on Spruce right now, would that still be available after construction?
Like city parking?
Yes.
Yes.
and it still be angled parking, or would it be then,
That'll be up to the city staff and engineering department, but that would be, we would assume that, but
does the size of that road stay the way it is?
yeah, it wouldn't be decreased.
You have to meet the
Parallel.
standards.
Well, it's angled now. It's parallel on one side and angled on the other side.
You're right. Mr. Chair, can you move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, so access and parking. Access to the proposed development will be via Lillooet Avenue to a 2-story underground parkade. The development proposal exceeds the requirements for on-site parking aligned within the village zoning bylaw with 132 vehicle parking stalls and 26 bicycle parking stalls provided. Additional existing street parking is also available, and Lillooet Avenue is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and access permit has been issued for that.
Can you tell me what the clearance is in the parkade? The vertical clearance?
It'll be, the final number will be determined when down the road when the structural engineer is involved and the depth of the floor system, but it should be at a minimum, probably about 7 or 7.5 feet would be the bare minimum.
Patrick?
The 2.6 meters, I think.
Over 2 meters though.
Yes, oh yes, over 2 meters for sure.
The reason for that concern is because 1.93 meters is the least amount you can use for a pickup truck. 1.98 is kind of standardized with large tires, so you need over 2 meters to get off-street parking for pickup trucks.
Which begs the question, how wide are the stalls? Are they the Vancouver narrow ones or are they?
They're following the Harrison Hot Springs zoning bylaw. I can check the actual size dimensions for you. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Yeah.
It's in our zoning bylaw.
Okay.
And we are in compliance with the zoning bylaw.
So
9 feet wide, 9'0" wide. Which is actually wider than most other neighboring jurisdictions.
2.7 usually isn't.
Yeah,
To be a hero,
132 parking stalls, are some of those dedicated for the commercial space, or are they all for residents?
yes, they're for commercial as well. There's commercial parking requirement and those are met, as well as the residential, both 10 and 10 visitor, and all those parking requirements are.
Okay. You went from 50 bicycle stalls to 26. Where were they previously and why the change?
Previously, in the original proposal, we had way more bicycle stalls because we knew we had a shortfall of car stalls. So we
Okay.
wanted to propose to offset the shortage of car stalls, we were having more bicycle stalls, so we took out some of the bike stalls, still meeting the bike requirement, but converting a lot of those to car stalls.
So they were previously in the underground parking area?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to back up to the question, the way it operates in the zoning bylaw, if it's commercial and residential use, then you have to take into account both of them, and then you come up with the magic number.
And that's what wasn't happening before? That's
No.
what I was asking, so.
Yes.
Okay, and regarding street parking, like the street parking along Lillooet is currently, it's a gong show. And are you going to put like parallel parking stalls in along your building?
That's up to the city, to the
Okay.
village. But that we would assume that there'd be parallel parking stalls with a curb and gutter.
Yeah.
But that's to be determined with the engineering staff.
Okay, parallel or even,
The APC can make a recommendation on that, Mr. Chair.
yeah, so
Yeah.
There will be curbs and sidewalks all the way around them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would like to propose a
Angle,
recommendation?
angle parking in front of the proposed building along Lillooet Avenue to make better use of the space. And we're gonna say angle parking because, that'll be most suitable for more, uses of the commercial space.
Okay, we have a seconder on that? Good, thank you. So, so we've got that in the minutes for angle parking. So that speaks to the fit and finish of the curbside from the building route out to the street and including the parking. Thank you.
Understood. Can I move on, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Fire safety and design, all exterior cladding materials will be non-combustible. The building will be fully sprinklered and each condominium suite will have a minimum of a 1 hour fire separation between it and the adjacent suites beside it and the floors above and below it.
Sprinkled in the suites and the hall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Please, thank you.
Community benefit, part of this has been gone over already, but the community amenity contribution of $30,000 to be used at the discretion of the village. Improvements to the public realm include barbecue stands, bike racks, public benches, and the public plaza. Upgrade to the Rendell Park washrooms with a 2-year warranty program. New sidewalks, curbs, and storm drainage. Addition of a bus shelter and bench at the Eagle Street bus stop. And new public trees and landscaping improvements.
And it would be our understanding that all these community benefit items will be complete before occupancy permit is issued?
Yes.
And reviewed and approved by the village staff.
Yes.
So I've got a question about the storm drainage. We don't have storm drainage in Harrison. Where would that get drained to?
Right, to the kind of ditch system or infiltration. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Infiltration, even that has to be engineered, that officially is a storm.
But doesn't that have to be like a large pit area and there's not enough space on the property for that?
Not necessarily, I can't, you're probably better to answer this question, but there's lots of systems that are in place and even ways of doing it within the storage in the walls of the building and
Okay.
parking spaces and such like that
Okay,
with slow trickles and overflows. There's lots of ways to do it. We work in a lot of communities where there's not storm drainage
Okay,
systems.
so fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, and even stuff like the parquet.
They do well there.
Yeah, for the parquet areas, the drainage for them has to go through an oil interceptor to catch any contaminants. So there is a whole system for that. There isn't a city storm system that's piped. So,
Unless I'm mistaken, one of the general rules of development is your pre and post flows need to be the same.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Local connections. So the developer and his family reside locally in the village of Harrison Hot Springs and have been good community partners. A sales center to promote the local real estate has been constructed using local contractors and will employ and cater to local businesses in the village. Mr. Chair.
Okay, your summary, please.
Summary of rationale. The proposal is in keeping with the intended land use defined within the official community plan. The proposed design is consistent with village objectives and design guidelines in Schedule 1D of the official community plan. A range of street fronting commercial businesses at ground level are proposed along with attractive streetscape aesthetics that contribute to the appearance of a high-quality lakeside resort community. The site design is in accordance with the view preservation strategy as referred to by Leon earlier and will enhance lakeshore viewing opportunities through the addition of outdoor public amenity space. The proposal contributes to growth through densification and supports the expansion of the local economy through available employment and shopping opportunities. And finally, the development will improve pedestrian connections to the lakeshore area and other public amenities. Streetscape improvements and the addition of a public plaza will encourage walking and social interaction with the village core. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today.
Thank you very much. Just one final comment I had is that in your presentation, especially to the public, in the public realm, when you go into the large developments, especially when there's a mix of commercial and residential, it's essential that you emphasize the benefits to the community that lives within the building and how they will be looked after in terms of the interrelationships and the socialization and the things that they can work together on, so that they're not at odds with each other and we have kind of a harmonious development. So when we have commercial and we have residential and we have a mix of rental and we have condo ownership opportunities for those strata councils to find ways to work together, like things on the rooftop amenity space, how they're going to be utilized, who they're available to, getting those things all predetermined and set up effectively can make it a much more cohesive development. So I would encourage you to emphasize those social benefits and how that comes together in your presentation, because we look very carefully at those, because we have seen too many of these larger developments where those things aren't effectively looked after, and we end up getting developments where you've got a lot of people at odds with each other. And we would like to see you start off really well in that regard. Thank you. Any final comments from the group, please?
One last question, sorry, going back to the roof. Any idea of what percentage of the building exceeds the 17.95? When I look at the peak in that, it's hard to judge whether we're talking 20%, 30%.
Right. I don't have the exact number, but in looking at our design, I'd say probably maybe 20% would be the pop-up area.
This,
Do you have
So-
those designs in front?
No.
If that sort of.
And the three pop-ups are the side facing Silhouette. So on the other side facing the park, that's more of the lower main roof.
that's where there's a view from the amenity area.
Correct, yeah.
So like, okay.
On this level 6 floors, do we have a crossover floor requirement?
There'll be one, typically the third or fourth floor.
So when we have that crossover floor requirement, please indicate how you're securing what is located on that floor, because we'll have open stairwells from side to side.
The code has changed actually, that you're allowed to have electromagnetic locks on those crossover floors, so they remain secured, but unlock in fire alarm activation.
Okay, that's second stage fire alarm
Yeah.
activation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you'd indicate that as well.
Sure. That's a new code change, because it used to have those security concerns. So exactly, yeah, what you mentioned.
Okay, and there's no areas of refuge in the stairwells?
No, those aren't required.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just a question again about the short-term rentals. This, and you might know the answer to this one here, Ken. Yeah, this is a zone commercial. The area is zone commercial, okay? And therefore, in the village of Harrison, short-term rentals are permitted there, is that correct? It's just in the residential areas like
Yeah, they're
behind.
not allowed in any of the residential
Yeah.
areas. They gotta be in a commercial zone
Yeah.
and with an active business license.
Mhm, mhm. So technically, as far as the village is concerned, short-term rentals, if somebody were to buy a unit there, get a business license, they could turn it into a short-term rental, regardless of what we.
They can't if the
If-
strata
If
has,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Strata,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
and that you can't covenant against it within the strata.
Yeah, no, fair enough, yeah.
So it's technically legal to have it, but it doesn't have to be allowed in the development permit.
Okay.
So the village does not have a requirement for short-term rentals.
Just focus it all, we've pushed them all into the commercial zone.
Okay, but there's no requirement for a minimum number in any development.
No,
No.
Definitely not.
So there's no required minimum for rental units at all?
sorry?
There's no requirement for rental units in this development,
No,
not at all. So they'd all be sold, and I don't understand the commercial, do you mean on the ground floor, the commercial? Those would be short-term rental?
No, the restaurant and the businesses would be the commercial.
Yes,
The residential units are either rental or owned.
Yes,
And there's a difference between short-term rental
Yes.
units and long-term rental.
yes,
Long-term rentals socialize generally the same as purchased units.
yes.
Short-term rentals, there's no
Yes.
socialization of the people.
Yeah,
that
no,
do
I agree
those.
with that.
That's it.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that
Yeah.
I couldn't see any benefit of the short-term rental.
Would this need to go to another public meeting?
I'm sorry,
Does
another,
this need to go to another public meeting? Is it?
we have been given permission from council to, when we've gone through this referral process,
Yeah.
to set up a public hearing, yes.
Yeah, the reason why I'm saying is because the last proposal was vastly different. And the residents are,
We did have a public information meeting already as well.
Back in February,
Yeah, in February. So we did have, quite a few people showed up actually.
there was 40 something, I think it was.
Oh, I think more 40 signed in, but there were
Okay.
quite a few people there.
but was,
Regarding this plan.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
with the revisions, all the changes, essentially the same presentation we're giving you was what we had laid out for them.
what time of day was that meeting?
That was, well, it's very specific in the bylaw with how that has to be conducted, so I believe it was.
So Friday, they had to put the ad in the newspaper to let everybody know about it.
Yep.
And then hold it within 5 days after the last ad.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm getting a time of day.
Oh.
It was 2
2 o'clock.
o'clock. I thought it was
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
during work time for most people.
Mhm.
That's a problem.
Were we required to do that? For that 2 o'clock? Is that
No.
what
It
you're
wasn't required for 2, but it had to be on the Friday,
Mhm.
is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think
So-
it was it not at 12?
I think I remember it being something like in the middle of the day sometime.
It was definitely in the middle of the day, we were
Yeah.
hoping to be able to get some people, you know,
But it was well
But, I
attended,
mean,
40
it had to be on the Friday, so.
So can we
you know,
can we suggest then that the public meeting should be planned, and it should be planned after the normal working day?
Yeah.
So that the residents can,
If I may, Mr. Chair, that's actually one of the processes. Council has asked me to look at all of the land use development bylaws and update them. And that's one of the issues that we have flagged for section 11 in the development procedures bylaw, to change that in 5 and 10 days.
And the
So you
pub-
can stretch it over.
And do we have the time of the meetings?
There's no special time of day, they're all the same, but it depends, if we wanna keep it after supper, then that's fine.
Yeah.
it's just that if we have a meeting for the public, we should have it at a time that.
Sort of accommodate as
Yeah.
much as possible.
As much as possible.
There is a nuance here too, is there's a difference between a public meeting and a public hearing. The public meeting are, for all intents and purposes, are done at the developer's discretion. They can be indicated or requested by staff and or council. And those are done at any time that can take place. But the public hearing, which is part of the actual rezoning application process, I think would almost always be in the evening, would it
Yes.
not, Ken?
They are.
And this also gives the developer a new opportunity to take the comments we've made and incorporate where you feel it's appropriate,
Agreed.
those things, before it goes on to mayor and council and they put it through their process.
These are very helpful meetings for us, in your comments earlier about socialization and I'll use the term conflict that you mentioned. That's something definitely we'll be discussing as a group and trying to address when we get to the public hearing.
Thank you. Yes, you had a comment?
Yeah, I've been sitting here, as I said, I was familiar with what was first proposed. And without that much experience looking at these things, you expect that when council says to go back and try some more, that it might get tweaked, but this goes beyond a tweak. And I think that the general information the council has to realize when they see this is that I think you made significant improvements and changes to the development. What concerns me, and Chairman, you mentioned that we want to know, or we should be recommending what the council should be thinking of when they consider the proposal, when it reaches the desk there. I can be maybe ruled out of order, but I think council has to begin to look with this and other developments at the ability of the village to support them. Our water system is approaching its limit. Our water treatment plant has approached or exceeded its ability to serve the community. This isn't the only development that can be added to the mix in the community right now. And it's not the developer's fault, but at one point, council is going to have to consider, can we approve anything without adding another water cistern up on the mountain, or without improving our water treatment plant? Because we talked about storm drain and all that. We've reached the limits, and I think our council has to look at this. The height on this is an issue, but to me, I think that the development has adequately, considering the surrounding buildings and so on. The council shouldn't have a major problem with that one, except, do we have a fire truck with a ladder that can get up there? That's a consideration council has to consider with all of these developments, and it doesn't have to do so much with the merits of the proposal, but of the ability of the village to deal with it effectively and serve the village well and serve the development well. So I think that there's a lot of, if not red warnings, amber warnings about the village's ability to look at too many more of these developments without having to increase our ability to service those developments. And this one just happens to be right at the cusp, and of course, that the council will have to decide. But as I said, I hope that's not out of order, but I think council has some very serious matters to look at with this and other developments coming down the pike.
Well, within regards to this development, we've looked at the presentation and the things that were brought forward to be considered on this development. Your comments about the village ability in general to handle developments goes into the minutes, and the mayor and council will have that for their consideration. That's all we can do within this framework.
That's fine.
So your comments will be minuted and they will have them to review. And Ken, you had a...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a tool that's currently in the Local Government Act that the Village of Harrison Hot Springs is unfortunately not taking advantage of right now. And that's called Development Approval Information, which answers all of these questions. It's currently not inside the current post-official community plan bylaw. But what we've done in the past is when we've received comments like this, any impacts, like how's it going to impact the roads, because we did that traffic study, how's it going to impact the parking, we did that parking study, all of those things, we can go back and basically with cap in hand and talk to the developer that we need to see X, Y, and Z. If we had the legislation backing us, it could be an automatic tool that we can say, here's the 5 issues we want you to look at: environment, traffic, how's it going to impact community services, how's it going to impact the roads, sewer, water, all of those sorts of things. But we can do that because this is what you're making a recommendation to council, as the chair has already pointed out, that if you want fire safety information, if you want the sewer and water analysis done, that these are things that we can put on the list.
And I think just in follow-up to that comment on page 4 of your report, where you have indicated a number of items that the zoning amendment bylaw 1168 required from the view impact study, sunshade review, all the various components. Each one of those components that were called for within that area should be made available so that they can be viewed to understand how they have been addressed and impacted one that I particularly deal with on a day-to-day basis is a CEPTED review. So your crime prevention through environmental design, how was that done, who did it, and what were the results of that? So having those various studies available so that we can see that the impact has been looked at and we can understand it, just better helps this group and mayor and council to analyze and review the applications more effectively.
And this is why, sorry to interrupt, and this is why we need all of that type of information, because all of those reports have to be made public at the public hearing.
Right.
Everything that we've looked at and how we've come to the, or what the council may be looking at, has to be available at the public hearing. So this is why we need to get all of this information together before we can go to the public hearing.
And just as a recommendation, in kind of not in follow-up, but in advance of that, as we come together as an advisory planning commission to look at these applications, it would be good if we had those studies to look at in
Yes.
advance before we make our comments and before it goes to a public hearing, because we didn't have those to look at.
Yes, unfortunately, because the legislation requires it to have set up that we've designated a DAI area in the OCP, what it doesn't have. And then the separate DAI bylaw says, this is the type of engineer, this is what the minimum or expertise that they have to have, and we want them to do X, Y, and Z. And then all of those reports get fed into the process.
Will that be specified in the new OCP?
Yes, it's in there.
Yes, you had a comment, please.
So I just wanted to point out that we have done a capacity study, and that was done by a civil engineer, and that came back positively, obviously. The fire department did receive a referral and has responded already, and they're fine with proposed development. In other words, our impression of that is that they do feel that they'll be able to fight a fire on the building as proposed and accept.
I don't think it's in yet. They're still working on the letter that I'm aware of anyhow.
Yeah, we haven't just.
It was referred.
but we
There
have had-
was one from the previous, but not for this one revised. So there's been a revised, for the revised application. Because the
Okay.
fire chief is looking at trying to figure out, because of the changes, to look at the costing for the internal versus external fire forces.
Okay, my apologies.
Please continue.
So, assumption on my part, but lower density, lower roofs, one would assume if the original referral came back positive, that this would do the same, but my apologies if we have not yet received that. Now I'm second guessing myself, but if I'm not mistaken, we did do a CEPTED report already as well.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that you've complied with what was in the list. My point is the advisory planning commission needs to see those items so that we can comment on them effectively, because seeing an item listed on a piece of paper is different than reading the report that the item is based on.
Well, and your comments are well received, because we want to give our client the best opportunity to get through the public hearing positively. And if that means, hopefully getting the letter from the fire department or presenting the oral letter, if it means providing information during the public hearing about the capacity study, if it means providing a copy of the CEPTED report for review at that time, if that gives our client a higher chance of getting through the process, then certainly we're more than willing to do that.
Good, thank
We
you.
did make it available as well at public information meeting. I did have people reach out, and we did share the traffic study with them, and I understand you guys would like to obviously have a look as well, but we were pretty transparent about everything. Public.
Mr. Chair, may I also suggest, if you want a second meeting so that you can look at, that becomes part of your recommendation to council, that you have a second APC meeting to look at specific reports you would like to see?
I think that would be an idea. Do I have, bring that forward, Andy, a seconder?
Oh, I can't make a motion.
No, seconder? All in favor? Second meeting?
And that includes the arborist report?
Yes, whatever reports you want on there. So this would be a good time. You want to see sewer and water reports, analysis? You want to see stormwater?
Yeah.
You want to see the arborist report? At CEPTED? Fire?
We have a list of reports on page 4. The only one that wasn't listed in there, I think, was the arborist report. So the ones that are on page 4 plus the arborist report. And so that we could review those at a separate meeting. Sure. And then also progress on the issues that we talked about this evening, if we could.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this then. So we're coming back to this committee then?
That'd be up to council, but it's just a recommendation.
That would be our recommendation to council, is we have an opportunity to look through those. From personally, from what I've seen, I believe you people have done a good job at revising from what was here last year. It's a significant improvement, and you've dealt with a lot of the issues that we were concerned about last year. But one of the problems with this commission is that we tend to try and make decisions based on a list of items on a report rather than seeing the reports behind that. And for us to have informed opinions and make recommendations to mayor and council, it's good for us to have had an opportunity to look at those reports and then be able to ask questions and then come forward with comments that are relevant and will be of benefit to mayor and council, as opposed to us just rubber stamping what's on a list.
I understand.
Okay.
How often is the committee meeting?
They will call a new meeting when the staff advises.
Okay.
So that'll be between.
We're monthly, and then we can have meetings as required.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've.
I apologize for the question, I'm sure.
No, it's okay, it's okay. Valid question.
We've, the APC's agreed that it's gonna put us at Wednesday.
First Wednesday of the month.
of every month, we'll set aside so that if there's not a meeting, then we can block it out. It's because it's easier to have a meeting than to try to not have one and then book one. So we've tentatively booked the first Wednesday.
Of each month.
I mean, realistically, we can get reports to you all, I mean, tonight, really,
we
with
can't-
this technology, right?
But still need.
I
This is a
understand, I'm just
recommendation.
saying, how long do we need, you know, to review, I mean, I apologize for this, but we've just been delayed a long time with the formation of the commission and also, you know, after the revision, it's someone's fault, but it's just, I guess, the reality, so we would just like to,
So what you're asking is that we have a meeting before the first of.
well, whatever is reasonable for you to review, obviously, the reports and everything.
Well, I think that's reasonable.
First it has to go to council.
It has to go to council,
Yes.
and then, yes, it
Yes.
goes to council, and then it will come back to us if they so
If they
agree.
Yes,
And then
if that is their wish.
and then if they agree, it will come back to us,
That's quite a
and we'll have a
delay.
review.
That's quite a delay.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
I know, but I'm just saying that that's a long delay, given
Yes.
what wasn't
Yes.
proposed, wasn't forwarded last night. So, you know, we're continuing to leave this thing hanging.
Yes, I agree.
I'm sorry,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chair, I
please.
interrupted you, I apologize. The long and short is, we think we've got a good project here, and from what we've heard generally, it sounds like most people think we've put a pretty good project here together. We were well received, when it came back to council. The vote to move forward was 5-0, and we got some good compliments. In particular, Station 1 got some good compliments on the building itself, and we've heard, generally speaking, positivity tonight. With, at risk of sounding impatient, and I apologize, we would be fine with just complying and saying, look, if it helps the committee give an even better recommendation to the council, and the committee would like to see those materials, as Jen was saying, and the representative of the developer has stated, we'll have those things to you later tonight or tomorrow morning. You know, not the referral from the fire department, but we could supply the old referral. And like I said, I think one could infer that a slightly smaller building with slightly smaller roofs, if the old referral was positive, then probably this referral is going to be positive. And like I said, if that's possible, and if the committee's okay with it, we would be fine with just giving those materials and coming back, just if you could please, as soon as possible.
What I would say is that whatever we are allowed to receive, we would be happy to receive it as soon as we are allowed to, in terms of the information.
Understood.
Add to that a copy of the architectural drawings, so that we can see the floor plates and the layouts, because that's what I work with every day, and it's a lot easier for me to look at a product and see what you're trying to build.
Understood.
So that would be beneficial, and it will go through the administration. They will advise us what we're allowed to do in terms of receiving the information. I agree with you, it should be received as soon as we can. The thing that we would like to be able to do is that when our information goes to mayor and council is that, yes, we saw the reports, we reviewed them, we either have questions and have had them answered, or we have no questions and we fully endorse what we saw and to take it forward. That's our desire, because right now all we can say is, it says that you're had to comply with these, and people have said that they did comply, but that doesn't help us help you
Right.
by looking at something and giving our sound comments.
That's exactly right, sir. Like, we would, on the reverse of that, is we would like to help you help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I get this clear, that we're not allowed to look at these reports until council tells us? This doesn't make any sense.
All I'm saying is that there's a process, and we put it into to the administration to advise us what we're allowed to do with the process, to get the information as quickly as we can, to do what we can with what we're allowed to do. And I don't have the answer for that. And so we will be advised by the administration.
It has to follow this process.
Yeah,
So
so
does
we,
that mean it has to go through you, Ken? Like I would send you
I have to
the
do-
documents and then you.
I have to-
As a referral?
The APC minutes will be coming, and then that becomes the mechanism. That APC minutes goes to attach to my report to council, saying
Okay,
that the APC would like to see X, Y, and Z. And have a second meeting to
Sure.
look at these.
So you have
issues
to put a proposal forward to the next council meeting
whenever it is.
for us to receive these documents, for us to review them, and then file the final report.
Is
Sorry?
there yeah, what he's saying?
So if I understand the process, bear with me, I'm new in this committee. So you, based upon the minutes, Joe will put forward a request for these documents that has to be approved by council at the next council meeting.
Yes,
And at such time, if it is approved at the council meeting, then we can review the documents, and then we can
Yes.
have a meeting to discuss.
yes.
technically we have a
They-
website and they're on the
excuse me.
website. Sorry to interrupt.
The council is the only agent, the only body that is allowed to ask for formally for these
I
reports.
see, okay.
It's, you guys make a recommendation, you would like to see X, Y, and Z. Council looks at it and says, that makes sense, we want to see X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C.
Okay, can I ask something else? Is there a way of just adjourning this meeting to debate next week? And they put it on the website and we look at it on the
Wonderful
website?
idea.
I believe
Defer.
it's already on the website, actually.
Can we defer? That's what that would be called, is we could defer for a week. That'd be
Mhm.
wonderful.
Well, I won't be here next week. I'm out of the province, but we have to be really careful, because we're just making a recommendation to council, and we can't move forward without council's blessing on any of the issues.
I understand, and I'll just go back to what I said before. We have it in the minutes of what we're asking for, and the administration will advise us what we are allowed to do, and we'll work within the parameters of what we're allowed to do. We know what we would like to see. Mayor and council will have their directions given to us. And however that process unfolds, we have no say in that, but we have it on the minutes of what we're looking for. And I know the mayor and one of the councilors are here, so they know what we're looking for. And so when they have their opportunity to meet and do what they have to do, we will be advised, and then we'll go from there. And I don't think we can push this any further tonight, because we're just gonna go in circles, because we are limited in what we can do. And we have no ability to go beyond our parameters that we are charged with, yes.
Yeah, and that was why I was just suggesting that it goes onto a website.
Well, we can't look at a formal report on a website and comment on that in a meeting per se, unless we've been advised to do that again through the formal process. It's still a formalized process to be able to do that. We have to follow those directions. We have no choice in that.
Okay, unless we withdraw looking at the reports.
It doesn't matter. It still has to go through the formalized process.
Well, I guess suppose mayor and council could look at our recommendation for us to look at these reports and say, they don't need to look at the reports too.
Well, could we not change our recommendation to say, if we, for argument's sake, say everything is fine, subject to these reports being reviewed and accepted by council to their satisfaction, we have no further comments to make.
You can do it that way.
That's true.
You can make them all subject to, yes.
Because then, first of all, I suspect that those documents are going to be, I'm not expecting a lot of issues with them, but maybe there will be. But we don't have them available. And if we wait for the timeline to play out, we're looking at least another month minimum. If we leave it to the responsibility of the council to look at those specific documents and highlight that they should and must look and review those documents, make sure they meet their satisfaction. Everything else with the proposal is fine with the committee. Could we not make that approach, take that approach?
We can do that. The problem with that is that we are relying on mayor and council to read the technical reports and in absence of our advice, and we're here to
Yes,
review
yeah.
that information and provide the advice. And I'm reluctant to do that because some of those reports are ones that should be looked at through committee and advice going to mayor and council. And I know it's a process, but I think we still have to follow that.
No, my concern is that the meeting yesterday, the council meeting yesterday, they never got past approving the agenda, so what chance have we got of getting it?
That's not ours to comment. That's a totally different issue. We deal with what we have in front of us on our agenda, and that's what we have to stick to.
No, that's why I'm saying that Robert's recommendation that, and then if they choose, because they haven't got the ability or they don't want to look at the reports, then they can send them back to us, can't they?
We can't say what mayor and council are doing in their meetings. We have an agenda in front of us and the things that we look at, and we take our recommendations and we put them forward in the minutes, and then it goes through the process. That's what we have. We have no other ability from.
But we can defer to council with a recommendation that they read those documents, use their knowledge and skills to make a determination whether those documents meet the requirements of the village.
I second that.
And bypassing, because I look around this table, I can't say that the council knowledge is any better or any worse than what I might present to those documents. I know you probably feel differently about it, Ken, but I don't know, I think it's a unique situation right now. And that is the delays that have been going on with the developments. And I don't know that it's fair to delay this development further, given where we stand and what they've proposed. Because I personally would trust the council to read each and every one of those documents, as we're going to instruct or recommend that they do, and they to make an informed decision as to whether they meet those documents, meet the needs of the village, and vote accordingly.
Okay, so
That's
that is
my-
your position that
That's
you'd
my
like to put
position.
forward? Do I have a seconder on that position?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of that? 3 carried. So that's what we'll go forward with.
It's not what I would do going forward. Going forward, I would suggest every other proposal needs to bring those documents to us at the meeting.
Yes, may I speak to that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, council's asked me to look at all of the land development bylaws, that all the policies, there's 17 roughly policies and bylaws in place. One of them being is the development procedures bylaw, and the current bylaw has the developer making a presentation at the end of the process, whereas the new council is requesting that information come at the front end. So this meeting would have happened shortly after the application had come in with all of that sort of stuff. And so this is one of the things that we'll be looking at in the update of part of the bylaws, is to bring it up to the current council's expectations of having all of this information at the front end.
Thank you.
That's just for your information.
Do we have any other issues with this?
We have nothing further on our agenda for this evening. So
Just a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, please. Seconder, Andy.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well done.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation.
We've been on a few, first on the agenda for new committees, and this one